Hey everyone, Crypto Henry here. Today I'm going to show you how much does it cost to deploy a smart contract and how can you save some money. You have some different options to deploy smart contracts. You have the Ethereum network, you have Polygon, you have Optimism, Arbitrum, a few layer ones that basically inherit the Ethereum blockchain security, but at the same time, you can deploy smart contracts with way lower transaction fees. But if you still want to deploy your smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain because it's the biggest ecosystem, there are still ways to pay less gas fees while you deploy your smart contract. So the reason why I'm doing this video is because one of my students from my smart contract masterclass, you can check the link in the resources section, Roberto, he asked, Henry, during the lab, I see the high cost of using real Ethereum blockchain, more than $20 per transaction. What if I want to create a smart contract to manage supply chain? May I use a public blockchain, more secure and more nodes, or should I try a private one? Moreover, how to create a private one with low costs? Roberto, thanks for asking this question. This is a really good question. I'm very glad that you asked. So, without further ado, let's go and check how to deploy a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, or if the Ethereum blockchain is too expensive, what are the alternatives and what considerations should you have when choosing these alternatives. So first, let's talk a little bit about the transaction fees on the Ethereum blockchain. Here on Etherscan and a few other websites, you can come to more and then click gas tracker, and you can check real time the average gas fee on the Ethereum network. So at the moment, as you can see here, the gas fee is around 14 GUI, which is 32 cents for a normal transaction, just a regular transfer. Of course, to deploy a smart contract, it will require more work from the network, and consequently, the price that you end up paying for deploying a smart contract is going to be higher, probably a few dollars. So 14 GUI gas fee is not much, but you need to have into consideration that these gas fees are constantly fluctuating. So maybe now it's 14 GUI, and maybe in 3 hours from now it's going to be like 100 GUI. And if you want to deploy a smart contract while the gas fee is 100 GUI, you will pay way more gas fee, you will pay a way higher transaction fee to deploy that smart contract. I would say that in most cases, deploying a smart contract is not a time-sensitive task, so you can probably monitor the transaction fees and wait a little bit until the gas fee go lower so that you can finally deploy your smart contract. So my first tip to save money while deploying your smart contract is to wait until the gas fees are a little bit lower, and then you go ahead and deploy your smart contract. Now, what other options do you have? So Roberto has asked also, how can I create a private blockchain? So there are different ways you can create a private blockchain. So now I'm going to show you the private blockchains and also other alternatives to the Ethereum network that are public chains that will also allow you to deploy a smart contract. But let's start with the private chain. One of the simplest ways to deploy a private blockchain, and this is quite used, for example, in supply chains. As you can see here, the example that AWS provides Amazon Web Services, one of the main examples that they provide is the supply chain example. And you can use their Amazon AWS blockchain managed service that makes it very simple for you to deploy your own private chain, and you can invite a number of participants, a number of nodes. But of course, this will be quite centralized because Ethereum blockchain at the moment we have over 400,000 validating nodes. While if you deploy your own chain, how many nodes are you going to have in this blockchain? Are you going to have like 5, 10, 15? It's quite centralized, and there are not much network effects. In fact, I have worked for HSBC for almost 3 years, where I was precisely implementing blockchain applications for trade finance and supply chain. And most of these applications had a very hard time to scale up and to bring more users on board, precisely because they are private chains. So private chains usually lack network effects. Because, for example, I was developing this application for the bank called Contour. Contour is a trade finance application, also has to do with supply chain. And you need to have on board the bank of the buyer, the bank of the seller, the buyer, and the seller. So you need to have four parties together in order to complete the supply chain. And it's very hard to have everyone on board. That's why private chains are usually a bit harder to implement. And although if you implement, of course, a private chain, you can put the fees to zero. No one has to pay any fees. You can have a totally different business model behind it. And maybe to deploy a smart contract, you pay exactly zero. But the thing is, who is going to trust your network? And people, if you want to bring more people on board to the network, people are going to ask, who is already on the network? And you are going to say, not many people. We are kind of bootstrapping this. So you have kind of a chicken and egg problem when you do a private network. And that's a big problem. You can also go to the Go Ethereum documentation, and you can deploy your own private Ethereum network. It's very simple. But again, I don't think this is the best option. I think probably the best option is to deploy your smart contract on public Ethereum. And, you are going to deploy your smart contract only once. You are not going to do it every day. So probably best is either public Ethereum network or using a layer 2 network. A layer 2 network is basically a network that you build on the top of the Ethereum blockchain, and it's public, it's permissionless, you can scale up a lot, low transaction fees, everyone can participate, and it allows for network effects. And in terms of privacy, if you want to keep some of this data privacy, you simply don't have to share it on the blockchain. So you can limit the data that is shared on the blockchain. So let me show you here some examples of layer 2 chains. First, the biggest at the moment, I would say, is a Polygon chain. Polygon is basically a layer 2, so it's a blockchain on the top of the Ethereum blockchain, pretty much. That's the simplest explanation. And you have big companies already transacting on Polygon, Reddit, Instagram, Disney, JP Morgan, and DBS Bank also recently made a pilot transaction on the Polygon blockchain. So it's pretty solid. And then you have also Optimism. Optimism is also an Ethereum layer 2, also gaining a lot of traction, very good and very fast and low transaction fees. And Arbitrum, also a layer 2 on the Ethereum blockchain. Both Optimism and Arbitrum are optimistic rollups. It's a type basically of layer 2, and you can check my layer 2 article in the resources section of the video so that you can read more about it. Another very interesting layer 2 that is being built is ZK Sync. Oh, and by the way, I should get out of the way, right? ZK Sync is also an Ethereum layer 2 with added privacy features. ZK stands for zero knowledge proofs, and basically it will allow you basically to share data on the blockchain, and the validators can validate the data without actually seeing the data. So they have some additional cryptography that will allow for better privacy. And I'm very positive about zero knowledge proofs and ZK Sync for 2023. A lot of applications are building on ZK Sync, and it's extremely interesting, very interesting for public applications and also for private applications. So these are basically the main layer 2s where you can deploy the exact same smart contract that you will deploy to the Ethereum network. You can come to Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, and the same smart contract that you deploy on the Ethereum network, you can also deploy on these networks. And you have exactly the same, and it's exactly the same steps. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to do this. I also want to show you what will be the difference in terms of transaction fees. So I'm going to very quickly create a simple ERC20 token, a fungible token, and I'm going to try to deploy it to each one of these networks to show you how much will be the fee that you pay for each one of these. So I'm going to create the world's cap token, symbol cap, and let's premint. It can be anything. I'm just going to premint 1 million, mintable, burnable, pausable. So I'm just adding some features to the smart contract to make it like long enough to mimic a real smart contract. And now basically we are going to copy this code, and I'm going to remix our IDE, and I'm going to create here a new smart contract. Let's call it just test1.sol. I'm going to paste the codes. Okay. And I'm going to compile the codes. And now that it's compiled, I'll be able to deploy the smart contract using my MetaMask wallet. So I select MetaMask, and I'm going to quickly put my password here. And let's make sure that I'm connected to the Ethereum network. Yes, I'm connected to the Ethereum network. So I'm going to click deploy, and let's see how much we will pay in transaction fees. I don't want to deploy the smart contract. I just want to see how much we will pay. So on the Ethereum network, as you can see here, we'll pay $36 worth of fees to deploy this smart contract. Okay, so again, you usually only deploy this once, so this will be a one-time cost in most cases, but I'm going to reject now. And I want to show you how much we would pay if we deploy to an alternative network. So let's take a look first with Polygon mainnet. So if we try to deploy to Polygon, how much would it be the fee? So on Polygon, to deploy this same smart contract, pay 5 cents. Way cheaper, right? Okay, I'm going to reject, and now I'm going to open it again here, and I want to switch to Arbitrum. And let's see how much will be our fee on Arbitrum. So I click deploy, and the transaction fee on Optimism will be $3. Also way cheaper, right, when compared to the Ethereum network. And finally, the last but not the least, I want to switch to Arbitrum. And let's take a look. I'm going to click again deploy and see how much will be the fee on Arbitrum. And Arbitrum is actually quite expensive. On Arbitrum will be $33. So it seems that in terms of price, our winner will be the Polygon blockchain. There are more EVM compatible blockchains. So these same smart contracts, there are a few other chains that you could explore. By the way, I'm going to leave you a link in the resources section to a Medium article where I show like 15 or 20 different EVM compatible chains where you can actually use these same smart contracts, and they have different trade-offs, but you can also explore them. So it seems that Polygon will be the cheapest to deploy these same smart contracts. Optimism also quite cheap. So when you choose a solution to deploy your supply chain or your dApp, whatever is the blockchain, you need to consider the size of your ecosystem, who are the users, and there are different factors, right, that you need to consider. But of course, the price that you pay to deploy the smart contract is a big factor. All right, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss any of these cool content. And as always, I'll see you next time.